Thank you so much for attending the Kincora Copper investor webinar today. Today I'm joined by President and CEO Sam Spring. Sam will run through the slide pack. We expect the webinar to take about 40 minutes. Everyone will be on a forced mute. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we will read them out at the conclusion of Sam's presentation and answer accordingly. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you, Julia. Great to link up and exciting times for Kincora as we embark with the second rig just kicking off at our Condobolin project this week. And following a $4 million financing recently, we're really looking to ramp up activities in the field. And I thought a timely junction to provide investors a bit of a general update. And here's a photo of the rig at Nevertire South in partnership with Anglo Gold Ashanti. We're making good progress there, really liking what we're seeing and focused really on copper gold discovery across a portfolio of 8 projects. So that headline really hopefully sums up the opportunity of multiple shots on goal, looking for large discoveries. And as this slide really outlines, it's a portfolio approach. All the projects are currently 100% owned. They're potentially tier 1 in scale. They're not small prizes that we're looking for here. And this portfolio has been assembled in the exploration strategy driven by a very strong technical team. Peter Leam and John Holiday lead that, credited with multiple tier 1 discoveries, and certainly know this region with John based in Orange. A hybrid prospect generator funding model, not so common on the ASX, very much so in North America. That model predominantly sees third parties funding the significant legwork in exploration and particularly drilling activities. Hybrid insofar that Kincora also looks to advance some projects on a 100% basis, as we are with our Condobolin projects, and an earlier stage pipeline looking to add value, so when we bring in those partners, they're more favourable terms. As Rick puts it, prospect generators have a very attractive track record in terms of outperforming the industry in terms of making discoveries. I think what you end up with is a 1 + 1 = 3 type scenario where the junior and the major can operate more efficiently as one would individually, both in terms of speed and technical elements and access to capital also. But also you're able to have more projects being worked up than a traditional explorer. You're able to have more of a portfolio approach, so more shots on goal. So Kincora is a snapshot, as touched on, 8 active projects with catalysts. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail. A tight shareholder structure, less than 48 million shares outstanding. As important as that structure is that 55% of the register is held by reporting insiders, i.e. people on the board and management that have declarable shareholdings and or 12-month escrow stock. And as touched on last year, we did a financing with Rick Rule, Jeff Phillips led, with a 12-month hold period at their request. That 12-month hold period is until September this year, and really was driven by trying to make sure that there was a very strong, high-quality book that came in and supported a very clear business model. Again, so far under the prospect generator model, 5 partnerships, over 100 million of third-party investment potentially has been unlocked by that. We're in conversations for a number of our advanced flagship brownfield porphyry projects, looking at third-party deals at the moment. So that business has still got a bit of fruition to come. We've seen about 9 million Aussie of partner-funded exploration since we've pursued this business model. That's resulted in over 18,000 metres of drilling across 7 different licenses and $500,000 of management fee income to Kincora. We're in a strong cash position with over $7 million in the bank, and that, I guess, most recent ASX-led financing is meaning that we're able to ramp up some of this sole-funded, capital-efficient exploration on a 100% owned basis. And here we are on the map, 8 times the opportunity is, again, looking at this portfolio approach. All these projects have large-scale potential, are in very good locations. The Southern Gobi, you've got Oyu Tolgoi, which is on track to be one of the world's largest copper gold mines. You've got Xanadu being bought out last year for its Kamatai project, which is a good analogue for our Bronze Fox asset. And within 50 k's of Bronze Fox is a private oxide mine that's in production now with a $1 billion construction of the sulphide project called Seven Savaga. So the Southern Gobi is a rapidly emerging mining and infrastructure region, and we're working through a strategy there for our Bronze Fox project. But really the focus of the company, and it has been since 2020, 2021, has been in central west New South Wales, predominantly copper porphyries in the Macquarie Arc. You can see there a really dominant land position across what we think are key elements of the belt, either in terms of early stage large scale land holdings or brownfield type settings near world-class mines that have already got existing geological and geophysical footprints that we think give us very compelling targets. The one outlier within this portfolio really is our Condobolin project. It sits in the southern end of the Cobar Basin. The Cobar has seen a particular amount of M&A activity, and the Condobolin mining field historically was an important source of gold and base metals, and that's where we've had a rig start drilling this week, and I'll walk through in a bit more detail that specific project to explain what we think the prize there is and what we're looking to achieve with this commenced drilling program. I guess a key thing with any explorer is what's the news flow, and we're particularly mindful that with the portfolio approach it can be quite difficult to try and understand what should we as investors being keeping an eye out for, and what are the key catalysts, and how do we track success. I think this slide does a reasonable job at outlining that we've got catalysts coming here from drilling, further asset level deals that are being proposed, and there really is a pipeline here. We've got some very good partners to date. There are ongoing discussions across the rest of the portfolio. We're drilling at the moment with AngloGold Ashanti at our Nevertire South, part of the Northern Junee Narromine Belt project. That should provide rolling news flow through the course of the year, as it has so far since we commenced drilling in the fourth quarter 2024. At Condobolin, we've just this week kicked off that program. At Wongarbin, we drilled a hole with government grant funding late last year, just before Christmas. Results for that should come out in due course. That's been a technical success, and then we'll have a conversation with Fleet Space, our partner for that project, for the next stage of that program. More recently, you've seen a new partnership with Atom Ionics for ground gravity at our Cowal East project, and we increased the scale of that portfolio. Trundle, Fairholme, Kundumble, I'll talk about in greater detail in the back end of this presentation, as I will with Mongolia. But again, news flow across that portfolio, and expecting to see some news for each of those projects in the course of this current quarter, with a clear strategy of looking to systematically advance those projects and add value. So the Condobolin project, where we've just kicked off drilling, located in the southern end of the Cobar Super Basin. You've seen significant corporate activity within this wider district. Harmony taking out MAC for $1.6 billion up at the northern end of the belt, being the largest transaction. More recently, you've had Arius doing a deal with Pure Mining for two of their existing deposits, and looking to truck that high-grade ore potentially over 100 kilometres to their existing mill and shore up mine life. There are a lot of opportunities within this region for further synergies and further creative corporate deals. That's really driven by the high-grade nature of a lot of these deposits. It's also driven by existing infrastructure and underutilised mills, and clear synergies from being able to optimise that across tenement boundaries. And I guess that's where we feel our Condobolin project really is an attractive scenario, that it's a historical brownfield setting that hasn't been systematically explored, and is within trucking distance to an existing mill that is on the record looking for third-party ore. So what are we looking for here? Historically, one of the keys with Condobolin is that the weathering profile and the water table impacted mining and exploration activities. Clancy Exploration, which is now Rarex, back over a decade ago, did some very good systematic exploration, proved that drilling through the water table and through the weathering profile wasn't an issue under using modern exploration techniques. And they had some really good discoveries. The Maritilga discovery was one blind discovery under relatively shallow post-mineral cover. You've got 4 metres of 20 grams dirt there, 10 metres of almost 6. And with base metals and silver, they were able to confirm a number of extensions to historical mines. And the interesting thing about the Condobolin project as an exploration target is you've seen within the Cobar district a number of discoveries following up similar sort of profiles of shallow workings not being followed up. And I'll walk through a couple of slides of what we're looking to do with this drilling campaign. But what we've done in the background quietly is consolidate the immediate district. We've increased our foothold by a third. We've completed regional airborne survey. We've started this first drilling campaign, and there's already existing permits going through the system to expand that beyond the initial 8 holes, and we've got the capital in the bank to do that. I should touch on what we're hunting initially at the Maritilga discovery is just one target, but there really is a portfolio of other near-surface targets, and we think, quite interestingly, that these are related to a deeper intrusion, and that provides real scale potential and really fits within that larger porphyry exploration model that we're focused on in the Macquarie Arc. And you see that sort of back arc type setting in a lot of other porphyry belts globally. So, as touched on, the Maritilga discovery was made by Clancy over a decade ago. Within the Cobar, you quite often see these systems being vertically extensive, continuing to depth, and also having repeats. And CSA is a really good example of that here on the left-hand side. Australian Gold and Copper more recently has made a good discovery with its Achilles target over in the southwestern part of the Cobar. It had some shallow geochem anomalies. They looked to drill below that and along it and have had some really good results. With our Maritilga target, you can sort of see, and these 3 sections here are all at the same scale. You can see what we're looking to do here. You've had some good hits by Clancy that haven't really been tested down depth and along strike. Plan view and section of what we're looking to do here at Maritilga. On the left-hand side in the plan view, you can see that there's some quite good geochem. You've got some really interesting chargeability features and coincident geophysical anomalies outside of this initial area that Clancy drilled and made that discovery. So what we're looking to do with this initial 8 holes is get in there, test down dip along strike. Permits are ongoing to expand that 8-hole program to test the wider extent of that geochemistry, and you've got some of those coincident geophysical and geochemical anomalies that are very strong anomalies in a relative sense compared to other peer projects in the Cobar district, and see how big can this Maritilga target be, and also try and provide some proof of concept that we think that there's an underlying porphyry cooking this up. The initial program should take about 6 weeks, a bit over 2,000 metres of drilling, and again, fully funded and comfortably funded for a follow-up program, both at Maritilga and some other targets that we're looking to test within the Condobolin project. In terms of access, really easy access. You're just north of the Condobolin township. The majority of the workforce from Mineral Hill drive to and from work through this licence on sealed roads. So really favourable drilling conditions, notwithstanding the historical obstacles that really create the opportunity today. So the porphyry projects, New South Wales, Central West, Australia's leading porphyry district. As you can see here is a photo of our core processing facility in Trundle. A lot of agriculture, wheat, sheep, goats, really favourable exploration. As touched on, we're drilling in the northern part of the Junee Narromine Belt with partnership with Anglo Gold Ashanti. What we're testing here is potentially the largest district of the Macquarie Arc. We've got 5 licences that are contiguous over 100 kilometre strike. The opportunity here lies in that as you go further north in the Macquarie Arc, the post-mineral cover increases, and there hasn't been significant exploration within this district. A lot of these licenses have never been drilled before our activities here. And in the instance of Nevertire South, where the rig is at the moment, there had historically been some drilling done by Newcrest and had some really good results, and that's why we're very excited by what we're seeing stepping out from that and upgrading that immediate target. So what we're testing here is new province scale. It's early stage greenfield exploration. You're looking for multiple discoveries, not just one, and that's where, given the nature of the prize, the stage of exploration, it's really important to have the right deal structure, and within that the right partner, and that's lead to that scenario where 1 + 1 = 3. And I think we've really got that with AngloGold Ashanti, who have been active in this region on a 100% owned basis in the last commodity cycle, and then in partnership with us and also Inflection Resources. Inflection's listed on the CSE, AUCU's their ticker. Exploration activities between AngloGold Ashanti and Inflection commenced about a year, 18 months earlier than they did with Kincora. They've been drilling since the third quarter 2023. There's been about $16 million of expenditure to date incurred. Very similar sort of deal structure in terms of Inflection being the operator, receiving a 10% management fee that's discretionary, that can offset corporate costs, all of exploration expenditure being absorbed at the project level, and that dilution being done at the project level. Results that we've seen to date, in our view, supports Nevertire South being the most prospective target within all of the northern part of the Macquarie Arc. What we're seeing is really exciting, large scale, the right hallmarks and characteristics for multiple discovery potential. And as touched on, we're drilling there at the moment. We had a workshop the week before last out in the field with AngloGold Ashanti, and both sides came away really encouraged by what we're seeing. And there should be rolling news flow coming through. We do at some point need to get up and continue following up some of the work that we've left unfinished up at Nyngan, but at the moment what we're seeing is very encouraging at Nevertire South, and we're looking to keep the rig there as best we can, managing access. So what are we doing with our other projects? I guess a couple that I wanted to really flag is our sort of brownfield type porphyry projects in the southern end of southern part of the Macquarie Arc. Trundle, which has been Kincora's flagship asset, we've put over $10 million worth of shareholder capital into that asset ourselves. It's had over 80,000 metres of drilling. There's a big geochemical footprint, as you can see on the map here. At our Fairholme project, again, really good setting next to an existing world-class mine, Evolution Mining's flagship Cal operation. Big geochemical footprint similar there. We've done a couple of phases of drilling. And the key with these large-scale projects is finding the right partner in a similar way to what we've got with AngloGold Ashanti in the northern part of the Jenin Narromine Belt, to come in and do that next heavy lifting, do the next sort of 10,000, 20,000 metres of drilling, which these sort of scale of projects really deserve and need to be advanced forward. Fortunately, with the fundings that we've got in place, we're able to do some earlier stage works, provide some proof of concepts, advance some targets, potentially do some early stage drilling to add value and I guess leverage our position of those ongoing conversations. And that's what we're doing at the moment. We've got, a geologist with over 35 years of experience who actually did a review on both these projects for an asset, a potential asset level partner who we're still in conversations for, and he's looking at refining those targets, and that will be a recommendation then that goes to the technical committee and board in terms of work programs that Kincora could do with the existing treasury that we've got in the bank, and also be pretty pivotal in terms of ongoing asset level conversations that we're having with a number of these copper, gold and diversified majors. And it is worth sort of noting that when you look at these two immediate regions in the Macquarie Arc as a whole, there's been no shortage of earning deals by majors coming back and doing deals with juniors, looking at refilling their growth portfolios, looking at doing it in partnerships with juniors, and ultimately the realisation that a lot of these majors stopped earlier stage explorations in the last commodity cycle. And a lot of the reasons why they did, in terms of headcount, ESG, costs, have become more difficult. And that sort of scenario where you're looking for a large scale prize, something that could be 10 million ounces gold equivalent, 20 or more, if you find what you're looking for, the size of the prize is sufficient that the junior and the major will be able to do very well out of it. And effectively, the majors, through these deal structures, are able to outsource their exploration function and get much better leverage than what they would be able to internally. So that's where we feel that it's really a matter of when, not if, that we're able to find the right asset level partnerships for these brownfield type projects. And they have attracted majors in the past. And you can see on these immediate regions that they're dominated by majors having footholds and doing earning deals with other juniors that have got what we feel is as good, if not less prospective ground than what we've already got there. So coming to the corporate side of the business, a bit of a quick summary. Tight structure as touched on, both with share count less than 48 million shares outstanding. Share capital mix split between the ASX TSXV about 50-50, about 55% of the register effectively locked up between reporting insiders and 12-month hold stock. So a really sort of aligned register for exploration success. The management fee does reduce cash burn, and what we're hoping that by the next series of deals with Trundle and Fairholme to get to a self-funding type model where management fee income would cover corporate costs, which creates even greater optionality for investors and an increased scale of exploration across a wider portfolio. Board and management, as touched on, a very strong technical team, which is critical, being at the stage that we're at. John Holiday, based outside of Orange, probably the foremost expert in copper porphyries in New South Wales, backed up by Peter Lehman, involved with multiple large discoveries, including Reko Diq in Pakistan. Peter's based out of Brisbane. I'm the third leg of the technical committee, making sure that there's a commercial lens over the targets, and we look to how we systematically work up and advance that portfolio of projects, and also assess further opportunities that may come across our desk, and we think that we've got the skill set to add value. Cameron McRae, our chairman, 28 years Rio Tinto, involved at the exploration through to the particularly project development and mining side, also based in New South Wales. James Durant, managing director of RareX. So real alignment in terms of understanding exploration and development. RareX are focused on their Cummings Range rare earths projects and a number of other pretty interesting critical minerals opportunities. They're a significant shareholder. Luke Murray, Chief Operating Officer of the Bloomfield Group. Bloomfield have a couple of operating assets in New South Wales. So a very strong technical team from exploration through to operations in the state, and very relevant for the medium term development of the portfolio of projects that we've got here, with very strong alignment of 25% of the register represented on the board. Late last year, after we did the TSXV financing, we also developed an advisory board. That advisory board is there to help argument our exploration asset level partner and corporate strategies, and also look to engage and have better presence into the North American capital markets. Jeff Phillips has been a fantastic addition to the register. He really has helped quarterback our corporate strategy engagement into the North American market. He and Rick were the two that led that financing that we closed in September last year. And shortly after that financing closed, we were able to bring Brent Cook on board, a really well-known economic geologist, newsletter writer and exploration analyst. Kerry Stevenson, fantastic network and knowledge of the sector, both here and also in North America. And Michelle, again, very experienced North American based, to help with being able to have a better presence across both capital markets. So we'll make sure that this presentation is up on the Kincora website. There'll be a replay of the webinar that's also up there. My contact details are here. If there's ever any questions, please do reach out. More than happy to deep dive into further questions as needed. But really an exciting period for the company with 2 rigs turning and a lot of other deals we think that are near term that will come through into fruition and provide material value catalysts to the company going forward. So with that, Julia, I might hand that back over to you for any Q&A.
Thank you so much, Sam. Okay, I have some questions here that were submitted in advance. Firstly, what drove Kincora's decision to keep Condobolin as a wholly owned project and not seek out partners?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. We have had a number of, I guess, conversations with people being interested in Condobolin. And we have also ourselves asked the question, does this fit our porphyry primary business model? And what's the scale of the prize here? I guess what it came down to is this is a project that a junior, we think, can add value to relatively quickly and cheaply. It's not going to require the lead time like a porphyry project in our mind, initially with some of these easy wins of the historical mining activities and a number of these targets that are near surface and just haven't been systematically followed up. When you look at the corporate activity in the Cobar Basin as well, it also lends itself that this is a project that lends itself to adding value and then potentially doing a deal with another group within the region in the nearer term. And that capital to get to the project to that stage isn't particularly significant. So, yeah, I guess we felt that it is a pretty compelling project that we can add value to. And in time, it may turn out that there's a natural conversation with another existing miner or operator in the region. But at the meantime, we want to add value at Meritilga and across the wider portfolio.
Thank you so much. How long is the program there expected to take? How many meters? And what is the lead time for your assay results?
The program, these initial 8 holes should be about 2,200 metres, relatively shallow diamond core drilling. So far this week, it's touch wood, it's been very smooth, getting good metres. In terms of follow-up activities, we're just getting further permits to expand the scale of that program. So that should be a natural segue of following up that initial 6-week phase 1 program. Assay results, always a tricky one. We are seeing the turnaround from the labs being quite slow at the moment. There's a lot of drilling activity in the Cobar and the Macquarie Arc as well. At the moment, if we were to get assay results to the lab tomorrow, you're probably looking at an 8-week turnaround. I should say that historically there has been visible gold and quite coarse gold that has been intersected at Meritilga and at Condobolin in the past. So that may mean that we need to get repeat samples done, which it would be a great problem. And I guess we'll, depending on results, see how we sort of sequence the whole batches going into the lab. So in terms of news flow, I wouldn't be expecting something immediately, but I think there'll be a steady pipeline of news late second quarter into the third quarter from Condobolin.
Terrific, thank you. Another question here. The Middle East conflict is ongoing. What has its impact been on diesel supply, your projected budgets for your exploration activities?
Yeah, and I guess we're quite mindful of that. Out in the central west New South Wales, we did see a number of petrol stations run out of diesel and traditional petrol pretty quickly. So that led us to have conversations with our driller, and we're using the same driller for Condobolin as well as at Nevertire South, about shoring up supply, and they've gone in. There's excess tanking capacity that we've been able to arrange with them that provides us a high degree of comfort in terms of supply and also price. So there has been increased price within the sort of drilling cost per metre, which is still relatively favourable, particularly by North American standards. But in terms of risk of supply and any interruptions to the program, we've been able to mitigate that through getting excess capacity with our drilling contractor.
Very good. Thank you, Sam. With 8 projects, Kincora's story can be confusing. What are the key catalysts for investors to keep an eye on?
And that's one thing that we do get a lot, is what there's so many moving parts. What do we focus on? I think that the key thing from a big picture perspective is, since we've pursued this prospect generator model, we've had 18,000 metres of drilling across 7 licenses. Now we're starting to do work ourselves. Condoblin's the 8th licence that's being drilled now. That's the first that we're doing with 100% of our shareholder capital. So I think it's pretty clear. Condoblin, keep an eye out for. We're drilling there with Anglo Gold Ashanti. Keep an eye out for the partnership and the news flow there, and that should be rolling news through the course of the year. But further deals, I think there's a number of asset level conversations that we're having for our Mongolian asset portfolio, for some of our 100% owned New South Wales projects that I'd like to think will be near-term news flow events, coupled with, I guess, this ongoing review and what are we going to do with Trundle and Fairholme ourselves, particularly bearing in mind we've got the capital to advance those projects ourselves.
Thank you so much. Stephen has asked, am I right in assuming Mr. Cook is also providing advice with your team in negotiating with or choosing a JV partner?
Yeah, Brent's got a fantastic network, very well respected globally, but particularly into North American capital markets. The advisory board is a great sounding board, whether it's from the technical side or the investor relations strategy, and Brent plays a really good role to that. We're hoping to get him out to the field this year to have a look. But yeah, to answer the question, he's got a great network, and there are some technology conversations that we're having, and I think there'll be some further news in terms of another innovative deal that we're doing that Brent's also involved with. But yeah, asset level conversations, absolutely. Have I got you there, Julia?
Most
Yep.
certainly am. There's a little bit of noise outside our office today. Apologies for that. Matthew has asked, how did Kincora acquire the Condobolin project originally? What did Clancy Exploration walk away with from the project?
Yeah, that's a good question. Clancy had a portfolio of a number of the assets that we own. And originally, Kincora, when we acquired these assets from RareX, had a earn-in, and RareX had a carry at the project level. When we looked to pivot from a traditional funding at the equity level business model to a prospect generator model, we flipped RareX from the project level to the listed company level, and that's how they retain their circa 8% equity interest in the listed company, and James Durant's on the board representing RareX. When we flipped them, it was equity that they got and a small royalty, but now we own 100% of all those vended projects. Within Condobolin itself, there is one license that RareX vended to us, and there's 2 other licenses that we've pegged ourselves that are clear of any royalties and pegged those directly from the state. In terms of why did RareX sort of walk away from this ground, back in the last commodity cycle, they had asset level partners. I think there were 4 or 5 different asset level partners for the likes of Trundle, Fairholme, Condobolin, Condumble. But when you had that really severe downturn, within a 6-month period, all those asset level partners walked away. And I think that's where you have the cyclical nature of exploration. But within this region, you're certainly seeing no shortage of majors coming back and partnering with explorers for lesser ground than what we've got now.
Kerry has asked, what is your biggest challenge right now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think and it's not uncommon as across the industry, is access to good people and good rigs. Even just getting the rig for Condobolin was delayed just because of the amount of activity going on in the district. So lead times with the labs, access to good people, and we're trying to get a couple of extra people to join the team at the moment and bulk up the resourcing. We're at that point in the cycle where, again, people is the challenge. I think, Julie, you might be on mute there.
Thanks, Sam. We have another question here from Matt. Can you provide an update on further asset level partner discussions and what would success look like?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. I guess for Mongolia, we've had a couple of asset level deals in the past. The projects come back to us 100% at the moment. What we would look to do there, if we can, is an earn-in deal or preferably a divestment. And there's a couple of pretty advanced conversations that we're having with Mongolia. And success ultimately there would be unlocking value that I don't think people are currently ascribing for us. In terms of Trundle and Fairholme, what we're looking for there, and also Cal East as a drilling partner, we've already got Atom Ionics as a geophysical partner. But in terms of drilling those projects, it's that management fee type model, a traditional earn-in, and we think sort of that multiple stage, not too dissimilar to what we've got with AngloGold Ashanti. So that would be success in our mind. But the key thing is getting the right partner in there. It's a long-term marriage. It's not just a quick deal, and so it's finding the right group as much as the structure and the terms.
Thank you, Sam. Why do you think the project generator model is not more common on the ASX? Who are comparable peers to Kincora Copper? And how do you think about Kincora's relative valuations?
And that's a question that I get asked a lot. I think in North America, there's probably a bit more of a focus on dilution. On the ASX, you quite often see a big share count, a lot of dilution. It's sort of a bit of a roll of the dice, binary hit or miss type mentality of drilling campaigns and focusing on one or two projects. I think, again, the North American model and focus on dilution is a little bit different, and this is a little bit more common and accepted. Everyone that I speak to, when you explain the details of how this works, intuitively like it. I think you are seeing a number of pretty successful explorers like Mark Creasy and others in Australia do it quite often at the private level, not necessarily at the public level. You are seeing a number of, I guess, listed juniors that have royalties, using those royalties as an income stream to fund exploration. Talisman, Emerson are two good examples of that. But I think in terms of our peer group, probably looking at the North American market, obviously Inflection's a really good one. There was a slide in the deck there comparing, I guess, the Northern June Narromine Belt asset and what they're doing with AngloGold Ashanti. It's the same style of exploration, literally next door in a number of instances. In terms of how to think of value there, we're a circa 40 million market cap. Inflection's a circa 28 million market cap. This is one of 7 projects for us. This is their flagship for them. So if you want to think about value, you're getting Kincora's 7 other projects for EV of 12, or not even an EV of 12 when you factor in our cash. So that's probably a helpful metric of a really good direct peer. But then you've got a number of other prospect generators in North America, like Headwater Gold, similar sort of market cap to ours. Hannon Metals is a good one. Mike Hudson's also involved from Southern Cross, who is probably well known to the ASX audience, looking at big copper gold systems in Chile and Peru. And then you've got AMARC Resources, which was until the recent pullback a circa 300 million market cap copper porphyry explorer in the Golden Triangle in Canada, resource post-discovery. So there's a number of peer groups out there that can provide, I think, a fair bit of comfort that at these sort of levels, Kincora's got a lot of leverage to exploration success.
Thank you so much. Luz has asked, what would you like to see achieved in 5 years, Sam?
Yeah, really good question. 5-year window, ultimately we're in this business for making a big discovery, if not a series of those. So the perfect scenario, say, for example, with these asset level conversations is you get onto a big discovery, you have that partner come in and take that to a studies phase, and the natural nature of this prospect generator model is you probably have an exit. If you get onto something that fits a major's profile, they probably don't want a junior involved, and within a 5-year window, you'd probably be thinking that, and that's the stage that AMARC really is at, that you probably would see a natural liquidity event.
Thanks. Matthew's asked, how many meters of drilling and how much money has been spent at, rather, how much money was spent at Condobolin before Kincora took over? Can you please provide more colour on the third-party mill nearby?
Yeah, it's a really good question on historical drilling. Meritilga, which is that blind discovery made previously, it wasn't that much. It was, I'd only be spitballing numbers here, but you're probably looking at sort of 5 to 10 RC holes, no diamond core to look at. But across the wider project, there has been more sort of sporadic exploration, whether that's regional geochem, because a lot of this subcrops, and a lot of geophysics, but actually deeper drilling, there hasn't been much impacted by the weathering profile. And I guess what you've seen is a number of good discoveries that have justified deeper drilling. But yeah, in terms of historical dollars, I don't have a number for Condo. And Julia, can you remind me, there was a second leg to that question too?
Let's have a look. Oh, yes, the third-party mill. Can you please provide more colour on the third-party mill nearby?
Yeah, the third-party mill, Kingston, which is listed on the ASX, owns Mineral Hill. Mineral Hill, most of the workforce drive through the Condobolin township onto our property to Mineral Hill on a sealed road. They got back into production originally through retreating tailings. Now they're back into primary ore, and they're looking at expanding the mill. And they are on the sort of public record that they'd be keen to do deals with others to secure third-party ore. And I guess that's a similar sort of strategy that you're seeing with Arius doing the deal with Peel up to the north, and the distance that Peel's looking to truck that ore, Arius is looking to truck that ore from Peel is about twice the distance from Condo to Mineral Hill.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sam. Everyone, thank you so much for your questions and your attendance today. For people based in Sydney, Sam will be at the RRU conference next week in Sydney. He's presenting at 3 o'clock on next Wednesday. So feel free, if you'd like to come and meet Sam face-to-face, feel free to register for the RRU conference in Sydney and come and say hello next Wednesday. Any further questions, feel free to email Sam. His email is displayed on the screen, or myself, julia@thecapitalnetwork.com.au. Furthermore, this presentation was recorded, so if you would like to listen to it again, you can head to Kincora's website and find the recording there later today. Thank you so much for your support, everyone, and have a wonderful day ahead. I'll now close the webinar. Thank you.